Today, we're going to dive into one of the most epic stories out there. It's about a terrifying force, an unseen army that's been locked away for thousands of years, just waiting for the day it's prophesied to be unleashed in a final, world-ending attack. So, let me ask you this. What if an ancient army, a monstrous horde with numbers you can't even fathom, was right now, maybe even right beneath our feet, about to break free and just devour the entire world? So, picture this. The story kicks off after a period of chaos has finally ended. You know, a brief moment of peace has settled over the world. But that peace, it gets absolutely shattered. It starts with strange sounds coming from deep underground. Then, rocks start to crack, mountains begin to tremble, and then, bam! The earth itself splits wide open. And from that gaping chasm, they emerge.
And listen, this isn't just any old threat we're talking about. This is the emergence of Yajuj and Majuj, one of the greatest, most terrifying signs of the end of days.
You know, the sheer scale of their destructive power is what's so staggering. They're basically described as a force of nature. We're talking about a horde that drinks entire lakes dry, eats every single living creature in its path, and leaves nothing but a barren wasteland behind. And human armies? Totally powerless against them. They're described as having these wide faces, small eyes, powerful bodies, just a terrifying, unstoppable force pouring down from every single direction.
So, who are these creatures, and where in the world have they been all this time? Well, to get the answer, we have to travel way, way back, thousands of years into the past, to the time of a truly great and just ruler.
And this is what brings us to the story of the ancient barrier. The one thing, the only thing, that has kept this monstrous horde contained for millennia. Okay, so the central figure here, the hero of this part of the story, is a man named Dhul Qarnain. This guy was a legendary ruler, one of only a handful of people ever said to have ruled the entire earth. He journeyed from the far west, where the sun sets, to the far east, where it rises. A man of just immense power, wisdom, and justice. And it's during one of these epic journeys that he comes across a group of people with a terrible problem. See, these people were being absolutely terrorized by the corrupt and destructive tribes of Yajuj and Majuj. They begged Dhul Qarnain for help, offering him payment, but he refused it. He only asked for their manpower to help him build a barrier. His plan was brilliant. First, he had them gather these massive blocks of iron. Then, they stacked them in the gap between two huge mountains until it was level with the peaks. Next, he ordered a great fire to be lit, heating that iron until it was glowing red hot. And for the final step, he poured molten copper all over it, sealing it into one single, seamless, and completely unbreakable wall.
But here's the thing. Even as he finished this incredible feat of engineering, Dhul Qarnain knew it wasn't going to last forever. He said, "This is a mercy from my Lord. But when his promise comes, it will be destroyed." He knew with absolute certainty that one day, at a time already decided, that barrier would fall.
So, what happened to Yajuj and Majuj behind that massive wall? They didn't just, vanish. Nope, they became an unseen army, growing and growing in number, just biding their time. And the scale of this army, it's just staggering. Behind that barrier, the nations of Yajuj and Majuj have been multiplying at an absolutely unbelievable rate. It's said that not a single one of them dies without producing at least 1,000 offspring. Now, whether that's a literal number or just a way to say a whole lot, the point is crystal clear. Over thousands of years, their population has exploded to a size we can barely even comprehend. And get this, every single day they try to escape. They dig and they claw at that barrier, day in and day out, until they can almost see the sunlight. But every single day, their leader tells them the same thing. Go back. We will dig again tomorrow. And every single night, by divine will, the barrier is miraculously made whole again, completely restored to its original strength. It's a cycle of endless, futile effort. So this cycle of failure goes on for thousands of years, until one day, one fateful day, everything changes. Their leader is going to say the usual words, but with one tiny, crucial addition. He'll say, "Go back. We will dig again tomorrow, Insha Allah," which means, if God wills. And that simple phrase, that tiny acknowledgement of a higher power, that's the key that unlocks everything. Because when they come back the next day, the hole they dug will still be there, and they will finally break through. And that brings us to the moment of their release.
The final onslaught. A global catastrophe that humanity is absolutely, completely unprepared for.
Okay, so it's really important to understand that this doesn't just happen out of the blue. It's part of a very specific sequence of major end-of-time events. First, the great deceiver, the Dajjal, is defeated by the return of Prophet Isa, that's Jesus, son of Mary. After that, a brief era of peace settles on the world, and it's during this peaceful time that those fateful words are finally spoken. The barrier crumbles, and the horde is unleashed, pushing humanity right to the absolute brink.
At this moment, Prophet Isa himself has to gather the last remaining believers and lead them to safety on a mountain, Mount Tur. And he gives them this incredibly stark warning. He tells them no one will be able to fight these beings. Just think about that. Resistance is completely futile. Their only hope is to hide and to pray. And as they swarm across the globe, their path of destruction is just absolute. They pass by Lake Tiberias, right? The first wave of them drinks it completely dry. By the time the last of the horde passes by, they actually say, hey, there used to be water here. I mean, can you imagine? And in their arrogance, after they've consumed everything and see no one left to fight, they shoot arrows into the sky. The arrows come back down covered in blood, and they declare, we've conquered everyone on earth, and now we've conquered those in the heavens too. This is it. This is humanity's absolute lowest point. The world is completely overrun. All the food, all the water, it's gone. Hope is pretty much extinguished. Trapped on that mountain, Prophet Isa and the believers, they raise their hands in one last desperate prayer for salvation.
And the answer comes, and it comes swiftly. In just a single night, a plague is sent upon Yajuj and Majuj. Some sort of worm or disease appears in their necks, and the entire, countless horde perishes all at once. They just fall dead right where they stand.
So, just like that, the threat is over. But now, the world is basically a graveyard, covered in billions upon billions of corpses. And this is where the story takes another incredible turn, towards a miraculous renewal, a totally new beginning.
I mean, just look at this contrast. The world transforms from a place of absolute terror and scarcity to one of peace and just unprecedented abundance. The land itself, once corrupted, is purified, and life is restored in a way that nobody could have possibly imagined.
And this renewal is just as miraculous as the destruction was terrifying. First, enormous birds are sent down, birds with necks like camels, and they carry all the corpses away. Then, a special, cleansing rain begins to fall. It washes the entire earth, getting rid of every last trace of the horde, and it leaves the world more fertile and green than it has ever been before.
And what follows is an era of blessings that are almost impossible to believe. The earth is commanded to bring forth its fruits in abundance. A single pomegranate is big enough to feed a large group of people, and they can use its skin for shade. The milk from just one camel is enough to satisfy an entire tribe. It's a time of true peace, true prosperity. Kind of like a paradise on earth. They even use the leftover weapons from the horde as firewood for 7 years.
So in the end, this incredible, epic story, it doesn't conclude with a great human victory on the battlefield. It concludes with an act of divine mercy, an answer to a single desperate prayer. And that leaves us with a final question to really think about. What does this whole narrative, with all its themes of immense power, total human helplessness, and then miraculous salvation, what does it all suggest about the ultimate battle between chaos and order?